you got to be careful with the whole big tent Republican thing, because I tell you, you're going to end up with a big tent of obscurity. Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Virtue Signal. I'm Alfonzo Rachel with my buddy Bill Whittle. And guess who's coming to dinner? I guess Trump didn't get the memo. Oh, did he know? I don't know. And Bill, maybe you can help us out with this. Kanye shows up at Trump's pad and brings some homies with him. Those being Nick Fuentes and I think Milo Yiannopoulos was with him also. And so now, you know me, man. I've long. It's like, out in the wilderness saying, hey, you got to be more careful about how you go about by doing these things, y'all. Or it's like, I feel like I'm, talking to a brick wall or something like that.
Yep.
And, in doing these things, I see people like setting themselves up for disaster. And even something like this could have been something that was just like blown off, but of course it's going to blow up too. And there's a lot of things that led up to this to make it so sensitive. But I mean,
can you just set it up for people who are not familiar with the details of it?
The details of which part?
Of Trump having the people over and what the controversy is about.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, because, with the left wing narrative, you're going to hear all sorts of stuff that's going to be played up. And then, you're going to have.
Well, what are they saying about it? Because there's some people who don't know anything about it. And I don't know a lot about it. So can you just kind of tell me what they're claiming?
And even that, because Trump is like, I don't know anything about this. But you have basically Kanye shows up. And I guess I don't know if he was expecting Kanye to show up or not. But one thing he didn't expect or supposedly didn't expect is that Nick Fuentes is going to be with him. And Milo, I think Milo was with him also, right?
And Fuentes is
he's an agitator, man. He's a provocateur. He's the alt-right, far-right, white supremacist, Holocaust denier.
Okay.
Right. And so now Kanye, and he's all over the place as well. Mm-hmm. And so now between Kanye, Fuentes, and Milo, I mean, you got a trifecta.
Yeah, it's a cocktail, all right.
Right, of disaster. And so, this is going to put a stain on Trump. And we wondered, was this set up? Was this engineered? Are these guys are they on a payroll? Because it just looks really bad. And it's like, between Trump and even Marjorie Taylor Greene, I guess, who's come out and say, look, I'm not with whatever Fuentes stands for. I'm not with it. So she went out and made that disclaimer. And so, I mean, what do you think, man? Let me put it like this. When we think about, maybe Trump running in 2024 or, Trump, being lauded like, the savior of America, he's going to bring America back and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. And it's like it seems like everybody Trump comes into contact with or is in his circle or is in his cabinet, it's like screws him over or it's like, do you know who these people are? Because these people that you keep, doing work with, if you can't even protect yourself from them, how are you going to protect the rest of the country? So what am I missing here?
Well, I don't think you're missing anything. This culture war has been going on for so long now, and it's getting so extreme. I've mentioned this several times. You and I have talked about it on the show several times, that when you're under attack for as long as we've been under attack from so many different places, been sold out so many times, there's a very strong inclination to think that anybody who shows the slightest sense of questioning things is automatically a traitor, and you've thrown Trump under the bus. I got that in one of the comments on Stratosphere Lounge last week, was that I was one of the guys who threw Trump under the bus. I'm not aware that I threw Trump under the bus. He wasn't my first choice, but when he was the candidate, I supported him, voted for him. And then when he was president, I thought he accomplished remarkable things. Voted for him again, obviously, in the last election. So questioning things and talking about flaws and things like that is not abandoning somebody. But at the same time, I think the whole purpose of not just our philosophy, conservative philosophy, but any intellectually honest philosophy is the ability to question and criticize things on your own team without it being, you're dead to me. The British have a term for this. Sometimes it's a little more applicable than others. But when in the parliamentary system, the minority party would be known as the loyal opposition. That's a great term, right? A loyal opposition. So it's a two-word term. Basically, we love this country as much as you do. We love the king or the system as much as you do, but we're going to oppose you and maybe the king for the good of the country. So I had to get all that out of the way just to say this. We knew from the moment he stepped on the stage that by the way, just so there's no doubt, right? I mean, see, I really admire him, but he is a flawed instrument. And I think that after the loss of a presidential election crushes people. They're never the same. And this particular one, given how shady things were and how, at least to me, how obvious things were, would kill anybody. So Trump is dealing with that. I think he's more vulnerable to this kind of thing than he was before. But here's my criticism of Trump. It's the same one that you have. He can claim that he didn't know, but he should have known. And he's not alone in this. When I say he can't have it both ways, what I'm really saying is, I guess we can't have it both ways, right? Trump can say that, look, I didn't realize these guys were there. Well, you are the number one target in the world, right? There's nobody with a bigger bullseye on his back than Donald Trump. Elon Musk is rapidly becoming second. But basically, there's no one out there who more people are trying to bring down than Donald Trump. Does this dinner affect my opinion of Trump in terms of his candidacy? No, because I don't think Trump is a racist. I think he's proved it again and again and again that he's not a racist. He's certainly not anti-Semitic. And so my opinion of him in this case doesn't go to his character. It goes to his judgment.
Yes.
And while I'm as convinced of his character as I ever been, which is why I'm perfectly happy to continue to support him, that's my strategic view, and it's also what my heart tells me. But my tactical view and what my head tells me is that he commits many, many, many unforced errors, and this is one of them. And I'll give you a really good example. Last night, I was trying to track down information on homicide rates between blacks and whites and what the ratio was. And those first 6 or 7 entries on Google, and I understand how those are filtered, were articles dedicated to debunking a graph that a guy had put out using murder statistics, right? And his statistical methods were unsound. The chart was just garbage. But Trump retweeted it. And apparently, I think it was Bill O'Reilly sat down with him and said, "Why did you retweet? Look, it was in a newspaper. I didn't write the tweet. I just retweeted it." And he, this and this, and you should have. Well, who am I saying? Look, I heard it on a radio show, and I thought a reliable source. Blah blah blah. This is the point. When you are what candidate Trump, starting from 2015, candidate Trump has to be a different individual than Donald Trump prior to 2015, right? Prior to 2015, not only could Trump do whatever he wanted to, the more outrageous the event, the better publicity it was for him. He's a businessman with his name on things, and people either love him or hate him. But controversy was something that Donald Trump knew how to play very well. He played controversy all the way to the White House. But once you become a candidate, and absolutely on a much higher level, once you become a president, you no longer have the ability to, let me rephrase it again. You now have a responsibility to behave in ways that maybe you wouldn't have previously, because now you represent more than just yourself. Now you're representing the hopes and dreams of 100 million people or more, right? Mm-hmm. And you can't be as cavalier as you used to be, whether you like it or not. And the final thing I'll say about this, at least in the openings, though, is that I don't expect Donald Trump to vet everybody that comes to his office or his house, right? That's a lot of work. He's a busy man. But I do expect that there should be somebody on his staff, right, who said, whoa, no. Somebody, if he had a trusted filter, let's take his son, for example, right? Donald Trump Jr., just hypothetically, right? If Donald Trump had figured out a way so that when he wanted to tweet something, it went to Donald Trump Jr. or to his daughter, even better, right? Even better. And that tweet went to the daughter or the son before it went out to the public. And those people were able, because they know him so well, they're closest to him and they love him. If they were able to look at those tweets and catch the essence of what he was trying to say, but take out either the inaccuracies or the keep the Trump but lose some of the carelessness, he'd be sitting president now. So my short answer is yes. It was indicative of a real lack of discipline on a part of somebody who needs to understand that he has to do better and this has to be more careful. Everybody's trying to bring him down. If somebody cozies up to Donald Trump and starts telling him exactly what he wants to hear, chances are very good that that person is working for MSNBC. And so, yes, I was disappointed by it. Does it change my opinion of it? No, but it's costing him and it shouldn't have.
Yeah. And, I think probably maybe to his fault, Trump does despite what people will try to say about him, being, I guess, this rich white man, it looks like he makes an effort to be in touch with the people.
Absolutely.
Kanye is somebody who's well known in the culture. And so Donald Trump's like, okay, obviously this guy has a lot of fans, people love his music and stuff like that. I'll extend a hand to him. You want to rap with me? Cool. No pun intended. Fine. Let's talk. And, but there's a lot of things about, and it's one of those things where, okay, man, there's these things I know about you. You seem a little weird, but you want to come holler at me? Come on and talk. Let's talk. Right. And after that, and have the meeting with him, and then Kanye pulled some shenanigans after that, saying, "Look, man, I think we're done. Okay, we won't be meeting again because Kanye did some weird stuff."
Who said this, Kanye or Trump did?
Kanye, right? So now, and the thing is, I think a lot of people want to hold on, to these traditions or these unspoken traditions and things like that. Like, say, for instance, the 11th commandment. Yep. And I'm like, look, but just like you said earlier, it's like, look, man. We're speaking truth and love here. We're not trying to destroy each other. Sometimes you got to call people out and say, look, man, you might not want to do that way. And if you do that, I guess you're a sellout or something like that. And you're not a true conservative because you're saying, hey, we're not infallible. There might be some things that we could probably improve upon. You don't want to do that, and or if that even happens even within Christianity. Yep. You can't question somebody's Christianity. You're supposed to be all accepting and all that sort of thing. The Bible doesn't say anything like that. You're supposed to test the spirits. You're supposed to actually question if people are on the square. Paul did that a lot, despite I know people want to think of Paul as all loving instead of Paul's like, look, man, don't assume that, I'm afraid to come and tell you what time it is. I'm a career murderer. Okay. If Saul came up to see you, it means I'm coming to kill you. I am not afraid to come and tell you the truth. All right. So I will go all out to tell you the truth as much as I used to go all out to kill you. But I'm going to tell you the truth right now. And I don't care if it hurts your feelings. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I'm going to tell you. Right. So even with Kanye, you weren't allowed to question his so-called faith. Right. So it's like there's nothing about Kanye that speaks Christian to me. Nothing. And now here it is. He's a blatant anti-Semite. He wants to culturally appropriate the heritage of the Jews and assign our heritage to the Jews. And basically they're black now. The original Hebrews were black. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, man, that's not a road that you want to go down. So basically what you want to tell me is that the original Jews are black, or the Hebrew culture as it is black. So does that mean that Jesus was black? And does that mean that we killed Jesus? Do you really want to go down that road? You want to pin that on us?
Exactly.
Man, black on black crime goes way back, doesn't it? Does that mean that Moses was black? Does that mean that the Israelites, they were black too, and they cursed Moses and then turned around and said, hey, man, we want to go back to Egypt. We want to be slaves because we had free fish. Wow, that doesn't seem to change now, does it? Kanye, do you really want to go down that road? And folks who think that Kanye is a Christian, do you really want to hold on to that? He's not, right? So these are things that Trump probably, or his handlers, and I've tried to talk to his handlers too. It's like, dismissed. It's like, look, man, I'm trying to tell you, you guys don't want to go down that road, but despite a lot of Republicans saying, who cares what these people think? They threw their arms around him anyway, and they're out there being buddy with him and stuff like that. I'm like, man, that's not going to turn out well for you. So that was one guy, in the mix of all this. And then we have the Nick Fuentes. What first impressions of Nick do you have? Do you have any?
To be perfectly honest with you, Zoe, I had never heard of him prior to this.
And neither did Trump, basically. So that's fair, right? But anything you might have heard about him or any impressions?
No, but if I do a quick Google search, I'll have a pretty good idea, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's something that a staff member should, could, and by all accounts, really should have done.
Yes. Now, so Nick Fuentes is, I guess he's done his due enough to show that he's a Holocaust denier. Now, I've heard him say that, look, man, I was kidding about that. You know, it's outspoken.
That's not something you kid about, dude.
It's not.
You
exactly.
can make a one-off joke about the Holocaust in bad taste, you know. And I heard actually John Ratzenberger tell a Holocaust joke, and it was hilarious. But that's a one-off, once-in-a-lifetime joke that he acknowledged was a joke, in fact, set up as a joke. But yes, this is, so you don't get to, it was misunderstood.
Yeah, and the thing is, considering, Fuentes' personality and stuff like that, it's like, if you say something, I'm pretty sure you're not the kind of person to say, well, I was just kidding. It's like, no, he says it and he's going to stand by it. So between things like that, these are things that, and like I said, I guess they kind of crashed the party. And maybe, upon finding out who Fuentes is, they look, man, you need to get out of my house. But Fuentes, he's very popular. So obviously a lot of people are listening to him. A lot of people are subscribing to him and stuff like that. But between, the Holocaust and another thing, him being a white supremacist or a person who says that he doesn't agree with interracial marriage. And just making statements like that, it's like any conservative who's back is like, look, man, you might want to distance yourself from him. And I'm not speaking from a personal sentiment or anything like that.
No, of course not. Of course not. It's just a toxic person.
Yes.
And it's not even look, this toxic person could bring you a large group of followers. As a matter of fact, a toxic person theoretically could bring you enough followers to win the election. But if it's somebody like that, I'm just going to say, no, thank you. Please leave.
Yes.
Right. There are things that are more important than the tactics of it. So, yeah, I completely get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Reagan was like, with David Duke, it's like, no.
He's not, he may say he's on the same team as me.
But he's
and I can't control what he says. There's a free speech in this country. He says he's on the same team as me. All I can tell you is I'm not on the same team as him.
Yes.
I want nothing to do with him.
Yes. Those people are another class of rhino. Okay. That's another class of rhino as far as I'm concerned. But now, but let's look at the fairness of this, if you will. Let me answer some of the things you brought up real quick. Hold that fairness thought, because I can't keep track of thoughts for more than 20, 30 seconds. I hear you.
So let's just talk briefly about the 11th commandment, right? Which I think is one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard anybody said, especially for a party that's not only perpetually, especially for a party that's perpetually demonized. Right, the last thing you want to do, unfairly demonized, the last thing you want to do is hand ammunition over to the people who are going to use it unfairly against you. So the 11th commandment, Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment is, thou shalt not speak ill of other Republicans, to which I would add asterisks down at the bottom of the page, in public. So the way that this should have been handled is that, I think Donald Trump is a man of integrity, and I know he values loyalty. He values loyalty probably more than most people, even people like us, because he's just under attack from so many sides, from so often, all the time, right? That anybody who stands by him is somebody he's grateful for, and I admire that. In fact, the entire dust-up with DeSantis just prior to the midterms, which I thought was just bad decision on Trump's part, that came as a result of Trump feeling that he'd been betrayed, personally betrayed, right? So when you've got these guys here, and he's got a relationship with Kanye and so on, look, when I said publicly, and I stood by it, I still stand by it, when Kanye West supported Donald Trump a year or two after Trump was elected, I said this is the most important thing that has happened since the election of Donald Trump. And people said, well, none of Kanye West's, Donald Trump doesn't appeal to Kanye West fans. I said, that's exactly the point. Right? That this is before he kind of fell to pieces. He has tens, if not 100 million of followers, right? For him to come out and say that you should think about this guy, it's enormously powerful. So my opinion at the time was that Kanye had managed to detach himself from this left-wing mind control unit, which he had. But instead of coming or falling up to the Republican. He just kind of went off the table. Now he doesn't believe anything. He just constantly, he's in bad shape, kind of. But here's my point about the 11th commandment. I give you two specific examples because they both happened to me. Back around 2012, I guess, somewhere in there, maybe 2010. I don't remember. Yeah, it would have been 2010 because it was when Ted Cruz was running for his first Senate campaign. He invited me to come out and introduce him at an event in a church with 4,000 or 5,000 people there. And I made a joke that I'd been making plenty of times before. And I said, just before we get started, I just want to tell you, fellow Texans, as a person from California, if you see a car coming from the west on I-10, give them that good old Texas welcome and escort them all the way out to the Louisiana border. But if you see them starting to drive through residential neighborhoods, looking at retail signs and realty signs, I would say open fire immediately. Don't take any chances, right? These people are going to come here. They're going to do to your state what they did to my state. Everybody laughed except for two people in the front row. These two people then went and said that I was calling for the murder of Californians. The original headline on Huffington Post or whatever it was conservative. They had some kind of quotation marks around it, like meaning, like it was a questionable joke. But the next version of it, there was no questionable joke, and especially no link to the video, because if you link to the video, you could tell I was playing that very joke. So I got death threats. I'll try to kill all the Californians, right? So when this thing happened, our previous employers, who both you and I have had a difference of opinion on, demanded that I make a public apology, and I just plain refused. I just plain refused. I said, if I apologize for this, people are going to assume that I was serious. And if you can't realize from what I said that this is hyperbole, I'm not going to validate your idiocy. So they said, well, if it happens again, then it's going to cost your job. I said, okay, well, if it happens again, then it'll cost me my job. But I did contact Ted Cruz privately and said, Ted, if this has damaged you in any way, I'm genuinely sorry. I didn't say that publicly because I wasn't sorry about making the joke. I was concerned that I might have hurt a Republican who I admire and respect very much. He said, we all laugh at it. We thought it was hilarious. We think it's hilarious to this day. When the same kind of thing happened later, and I went up to support Jeannie Ives for governor in Illinois, there was an event there, and a significant number of the people there were my fans. I endorsed her because I have a good friend who was really behind her. And 45 minutes before the event, her campaign said that she couldn't be seen in the same room with me because one guy at Media Matters had dug up a conversation that I'd had with Stefan Molyneux talking about innate intelligence. And they said that I had said things that they perceived to be racist. They said, do you say that blacks are unemployable? I said, blacks are unemployable in democratic cities because the way Democrats run the education system and the way they keep people in a state of perpetual poverty, they have nothing else to do. Yes, of course I said that, but that's not what so anyway, long story short, right? What I said to them at the time was, look, guys, if I'm just here to help, okay? I'm just here to get a Republican elected as governor of Illinois. If you think it's better for me to just sit this one out here in the downstairs, I'll just kick around and play some pool for a while. And that's what I did, right? And I didn't say anything about it until after the election was over. In fact, I didn't say anything about it 2 years after that election was over. So all of this to say that you can't expect a political party to not have disagreements. And furthermore, you can't expect situations to arise where the fact that you're a politician means that whatever personal friendships you may or may not have, they're public property now. And I thought in both of those cases, my instinct was, hey, whatever's best for the candidate, I'm willing to do. Now, if Ted Cruz had asked me to apologize, I would have given that serious thought. Even then, I don't think I would have done it. But the point is, he didn't. He not only didn't ask me to apologize, he said, don't be ridiculous. Of course, everybody knew it was a joke. It's just a weapon they're using against me. So all of this to say, Zoe, there are ways that Donald Trump could have handled this without him seeming to break the bonds of loyalty that he thinks are very important, and so do I.
And also what I want to get down to, it's not just about Trump himself. It's something, if we really want to support, not just Trump, but support the push of conservatism. That's what I've been saying the whole time. It's not about promoting a candidate and so much being loyal.
Precisely.
Right. You got to promote conservatism, and you got to know the things that do it damage. You know, like say, for instance, you know, and I'm wanting to kind of cover these people because they're kind of like at the center of my point here. I think I have one. But, you know, with people like, you know, Fuentes, you know, saying things like if you ask them, do you think interracial marriage is bad? Right. And now, if you ask me, hey, Zoe, do you think interracial marriage is bad? I'm going to say, absolutely. I think it's horrible. I don't believe in interracial marriage because I don't believe in any couple being in competition with each other. My wife and I are not an interracial couple. We're an international couple. We represent nations. Right? We're not a race. We're not in competition with each other. I don't know where that crap came from.
That's a brilliant way to look at it.
Right? So now, but check this out. In control, but that's one of the things that we need to get away from to keep the left from controlling the narrative, because
that's right.
The narrative.
We just walk into once they ask the question, if we answer the question they ask, we can't win.
Absolutely.
Get the question. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then from there, you know, the idea that only white people can be against interracial marriage. That's the other thing. If you're against interracial marriage, well, you must be a white person. Well, that's absolutely not true. Pretty much every nation frowns upon, you know, amalgamation. You're going to have to different degrees in everyone. Hey, my own father, you know, let me know, you know, pretty specifically, I don't like anything white. And if you ever want to marry a white woman, you will not have my blessing. Is my dad a bigot? Yes, but I guess he can't really be a bigot because he's not white. And just a funny story, right? A funny story. I played in a band, man. There's a band that I had called Super Slave. And you know, when I play these rock bands, all the members are black, right? And, and that was like one of the funny things to it because, you know, because rock and roll is supposed to be white people's music, right? And so that was just a narrative that we're like, dude, that's ridiculous. And this racism stuff needs to stop. And he even played in a band. It was 2 black guys and 3 white guys, and they were called Agro Negro and the White Power Trio, right? So it was a weird thing with my bass player. Man, he was mean. He was not a nice guy. Phenomenal bass player though. I mean, you know, graduate from MIT, Music Institute of Technology, and all that other Hollywood stuff, right? So amazing bass player, but he was mean and pretty darn Afrocentric too.
Okay.
And, you know, and considering, you know, what my dad had told me, and I guess that kind of like stuck in me, you know, my wife and I, you know, we had started, you know, we were friends, you know, and I told him about her, and, it's like, yeah, man, she's just cool. She just gets me, man. She's, you know, we're just in the same stuff and, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And, but I was like, man, I don't know if I could date her though. I don't think I could date her, man. You know, because, hey, truth be told, man, she's white. I can't date her, right? And Jeff, man, mean Afrocentric Jeff said, hey, Zoe, man, you know, I've up until this point, man, I've taken you to be a pretty intelligent guy. And, you know, I play bass with you, man, because I think you write some pretty interesting stuff. But I got to tell you, man, I don't think I've ever heard you say something stupid in the whole time I've ever known you. I've never heard you say something so stupid. You better go get that girl. And he walked out. And
oh, wow. Cool. Okay, I thought it was going to go the other way.
And I was like, who are you and what did you do with Jeff? You know, and the thing is, that was the last time we ever did a show together. Not because of animosity or anything like that or anything. It's just, after that, Super Slave was done. And it was almost like one of those things where it's like...
Do you think it was done because of you because you said you wanted to marry your wife?
No, absolutely not. It was just
timing.
It was timing. We just didn't get along. We really did not get along, man.
Sure.
And it's like... But it was one of those things where it's like, wow, man, were you just sent into my life to just make that affirming statement? And then, you know,
is that the entire reason why we've known each other, just for that one moment? Yeah, I know that feeling. It's amazing.
You know, and I tell you what, Bill, had I listened to the voice of, you know, you won't have my blessing and I do not approve. Had I listened to that, man, I would have missed out on marrying my best flipping friend.
Yep.
You know,
I've met your wife many times and you are a lucky guy.
Yeah.
She... Yeah. So let me just, because what that story about Jeff is really important on a meta scale. That was a case where this is the kind of thing that should be happening a lot more often. And when I see this happen the other way, it really makes me sick. This was a case where your friend had political ideas and opinions and all the rest of stuff put into his head, some of them justified, some of them unjustified. But that's who he was. That was basically his identity. But he knew you and valued you, and his personal trust and loyalty to you overrode all of the political conditioning he'd heard. He let his heart speak because he knew you. And this is the thing that is the most tragic about what's happening in the country. It's almost always with progressives, but not 100%. This idea that people who I grew up with, cousins or sisters or brothers or whatever the case may be, right? This idea that they've known me for 55, 60 years, and now they suddenly realize that I'm a Nazi because I voted for somebody. And they're listening to what Rachel Maddow has to say about me, who's never met me. In fact, isn't even talking about me specifically. But Rachel Maddow said this about people who make the same decision I do at the voting booth. And they trust Rachel Maddow more than they trust the 50 years that they've known me. That kind of thing is just soul destroying.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad to hear that story had a happy ending. If we could all do more of that, right? If we could just judge people that we know on what we know about them, we'd be in a much better place today.
Definitely, man. Because a lot of these people who hate Republicans so much, I mean, despite hating prejudice, they don't know.
They've never heard anything we say. They only know what they said we say.
Thank you. It's like they don't know. And, and it's one of those things that I've tried to help, the Republican voter base fight against with this narrative. Like with all the gaslighting, you see a lot of people who are getting upset because they see like international couples on the TV and in the commercials and things like that. It's like it's being shoved down people's throat and they're getting sick of it, and you can tell, right? And I tried to warn Republicans about this early on. It's like, look, the liberals are going to try to take this narrative, and there's a strategy, there's a system to it.
That's exactly right. They are going to intentionally try to write you out of your own culture as a provocation.
Yes.
Right, to justify the hatred and the prejudice that doesn't actually exist. They need to manufacture it.
Right. And when you have people like Fuentes come onto the scene, it makes it that much easier to light that powder keg. And it's like these are things that a wet blanket could have been thrown over this a long time ago.
Absolutely, yes.
But like I said, too many Republican voters, they're more caught up with the political victory than the cultural groundwork that has to be made and guarded against that will blow up in their face. And, but it's like, nope, we don't want to hear what you have to say about it. Right. And then now, lastly, the last person of the party was Milo, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I kind of sympathize with Milo a little bit.
Me too. Because he was done pretty dirty because he was dangerous to the left, and they destroyed him. And the way that they destroyed him, I thought was unfair. They basically said he was in favor of pedophilia and that he was calling for pedophilia. And he didn't say anything like that. He just said as a young gay man, he was approached, I guess, when he was 15 or something, and he said it didn't bother him. Okay, that's not a endorsement, right? That's I think essentially, maybe I got it wrong, but if I remember correctly, that's essentially how the thing went. He said, "Yeah, there's a real danger, right? Somebody preyed on me, but I was older than my age, I was more sophisticated than my age, and I, dealt with it. Didn't bother me." And people turned that into him saying, "I support, sexual, manipulation of minors." He didn't say that at all.
Now, with Milo, I sympathize with him in the sense of I know what it's like to feel like you got betrayed. I think, matter of fact, I think a lot of Republican voters can identify with Milo in this sense. With their representatives, they feel like they were abandoned. They feel like they were betrayed. It's like you're not representing our values, and you're just forgetting, especially when it comes to like the establishment. It's like, man, you're just forgetting about the things that we voted for you for. So, in that sense, I can understand where Milo was coming from. I don't sympathize with him in basically, in terms of, his orientation and things like that.
I thought the whole thing was kind of embarrassing personally, but that's my opinion.
But now the thing is, I've tried to tell, Republicans, you got to be careful with the whole big tent Republican thing, because I tell you, you're going to end up with a big tent of obscurity. There has to be a standard. I'm not trying to say that, you should just be a snob and just reject people. It's just, look, man, just like with anything else, if we're talking about America, for America to be founded, there took sacrifices. You're going to have to give up some things. Mm-hmm. It's just like the founders say, hey, man, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We made sacrifices. This thing that you're doing, this lifestyle that you have, that is an affront to the laws of nature. You're going to have to you got to leave that at the door. We're not here to pat you on the back for being gay. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you got these right ideas, come on and let's do that. But you're very flamboyant and you flaunt it, right? He flaunts that he's a homosexual.
Yeah. Can I just clarify, when I said that I found the whole thing embarrassing, I didn't find the controversy embarrassing. I found Milo's routine, his shtick. I thought it was embarrassing.
Right. It's like, the stuff that kind of stuff, man, you can leave out. It's any of us. There's a point where you got to realize that, hey, my ideas, you got to be honest with yourself and be like, okay, this is selfish. This is something that is maybe something I enjoy, but I need to understand that this might be problematic for other people. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you don't want to impose those things. It's like going into the military. It's like, look, you can't go into the military and be like, it's all about me. It's all about me. You're going to have to be prepared to make some sacrifices. Mm-hmm. So, and the sad part of it where I can identify with Milo is that it's like, while I was getting thrown out, with conservative media, it's like, okay, there's the door. They were throwing their arms around Milo.
Dude, that was when I was doing peak public appearances. And I was doing really well out there. And then when Milo hit the scene, he sucked all of the air out of the room. It was all about Milo. Right. And my problem was not jealousy, because I genuinely mean it. Anything that helps the cause, I'm down with. Well, let me rephrase that. No, not anything that helps the cause I'm down with. This is the cause that I like and I love. And if it turns out that somebody is representing those values, then I'm with them. But at the time, I remember thinking, is Milo actually addicted, or is Milo actually sudden convert to political conservatism, or is he a sudden convert to being in the spotlight? Because he definitely likes being in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And I was worried about him. And so he was kind of the flavor of a week for the while. And then he just kind of fell off the radar, not just because they targeted him, but because I don't think these principles were ever really lived and breathed by him so much as spoken by him for effect. I had some real concerns early on that the same thing might happen to Candace Owens, that she might just be basically enjoying, because there are a bunch of other people like this, enjoying the attention that they got for being, an apostate from the Democratic plantation. But she, on the other hand, I've seen her in Congress defending these principles, and she's the real deal. So you have to be careful about, let's just say, novelty.
Indeed.
Spokespeople.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that, been trying to warn, Republicans about, because a lot of times they'll say that who cares what these people think? And I'm like, well, millions of people do. Right. And the second they say something halfway that reflects their values, it's like these are the things that are paramount to them. They're so valuable. It's like they'll forget about anything else and not see that these people, look, they might betray you. Matter of fact, it's a good chance that they will. And it's one of those things where with Milo, he was disgruntled, dissatisfied, or whatever diss you want to make it with what was going on in the Democrat Party, where he did not feel fulfilled, right? Mm-hmm. And out of that, basically, he wanted to take vengeance against the Democrat Party by, committing adultery with them and going over to the Republican Party.
Right. And then the Republicans thought, oh, my God, here's an outspoken gay guy who is shooting down Democrats who accuse us of being homophobic. What a great weapon.
And now he's saying, I want to take revenge against the Republican Party and Trump.
Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. So it's, if I understand it, I've seen it. I've seen the tweet, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I'm sorry. But
it's kind of about him, isn't it? I've noticed that.
It is, and so now he wants to do that. And now I don't. That's not the way I feel. And like I said, I get it. It's like, look, man, you feel like you've been abandoned and betrayed and stuff like that. But vengeance, that's not the way I feel. I actually still want to help. Mm-hmm. Right. And he's flat out saying, look, I want to hurt. I want to hurt you. And, those kind of things, folks, it's like you said, man, you just kind of like do a little Google search, like find out about this person. We don't want, like I said, we don't want to be exclusive snobs or anything like that. But just like when we talk about people coming across the border and things like that, it's like, yeah, man, it's kind of like the same thing of, in coming to our own party. So that being
not the color of your skin, but the content of your character, not just excluded because of the color of your skin, but also not lionized and exalted because of the color of your skin. You know what I mean? Mm. This is the thing, and I'm including Milo in this. When you're accused of being transphobic, homophobic, racist, and all the rest of it, you find either a open homosexual or a black spokesman for conservatism. You tend to judge them by the color of their skin because they're formerly of the team. What's more important is the content of their character. Who are they? Right? That's what matters in terms of whether they, get into the tent. It's not a question of a useful, weapon. It's like, is their heart in the right place? Do they get it? Look, everybody who's come to the Republican Party, it includes you and me both, have a history of saying, pretty stupid things back when we were Democrats, but our hearts were in the right place.
Well, and now, if to be fair, is that a fair thing to say about us though? Because
I was never a Democrat. I was never, look, I never ever counted myself as a Democrat. I never registered as a Democrat. I just had a belief system that was heavily influenced by all the people around me, which was a theater department. Mm. And so I believed a lot of things, passionately believed in a lot of things I knew nothing about.
I hear you. Now for me, I guess I would have considered myself definitely a left winger, earlier on. But, for us, even though our heart was in the right place, now we would say about liberals, we don't care about your intentions. We don't care if you think that your heart was in the right place. It's about the results.
Oh, that's why you and I both moved.
Exactly.
Because you and I both moved because we had the strength of character and the fundamental integrity to say that the things that we've been told are true and the things that we believe are true are not only not working, they're untrue, they're anti-true. Yes. And so my opinion has to change, or else I have to live in a world where I'm lying to myself.
Definitely. And now, so folks, as we wrap up, with the virtue signal, just these are things to consider. There has to be these cultural defenses, not just like just walking blindly through the liberals' minefield. They lay the minefield, right? And their minefield is everywhere, so we got to make sure that we've got a way to be able to traverse the minefield or not even go to the minefield that they're laying. And, be ready for things like this that they're doing, because they've laid so much groundwork, to control the narrative that even it's down to flipping pancake syrup can be racist. All right. So we got to do what we can to not fall into their traps. All right. And speaking of traps, I'm going to go ahead and shut mine and sign off. For Bill Whittle, I'm Alfonzo Rachel, BillWhittle.com. Work that share button. We'll talk to you guys soon.